Hi everyone, this is Miss Christie from East Pennsboro Library, and today I am here at the Nail Mill Museum that was built in 2008 by the Historical Society of East Pennsboro, and I am going to turn this over to Jim Leonard. Thank you for being with us again from the Historical Society, and he's going to take us on a tour and give us some more history about the Nail Museum.
Good morning. Welcome to Adams Ricci Park, where our Nail Mill Museum is. Maybe you can step back a little bit and take a good view from the side, the front a little more, and notice that it has a special design to it. And the reason it is designed like this is it was based on the actual nail mill factory itself, the way it was built, like an old factory from the late 17th, early 18th century era, and the design is the exact design that the nail mill was originally along the Pennsboro Creek. So what I have to tell you here first off is Mr. Tom Crognally from West Fairview designed the Nail Mill Museum, and he did a lot of research and so forth, and decided to take it upon himself with a few of his carpenter friends and builders, and designed it and built it in replica of the nail mill itself, and dedicated it to East Pennsboro Township here, so that we could all see this special time in history when the industrial era was happening in the 1800s. They built an original steel mill in West Fairview along the creek, and eventually it turned into a rolling, besides a rolling steel mill, it actually turned into a nail factory where they actually took the products from the steel mill and took them into the nail factory and made nails out of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a walk inside. This is a hands-on, not really by your hands, a visual hands-on tour that each person can take upon themselves and go around the room and look at the posters and see some pictures of that time period, and the actual photographs from some of the postcards of the nail mill along the creek. So, Christy, it's getting windy and cold out here. Come on in.
Sounds good. While we're walking in, Jim, can I ask you if any of our patrons would like to come to see the nail mill? Are they able to call the Historical Society and make an appointment to come and see the nail mill, or do they need to wait until spring now with the weather being cold?
Well, it'd probably be best to wait till spring, because coming out here in this kind of weather, I had to bring a heater out even to warm it up for today so that we could be comfy in here.
Okay.
It's 40-some degrees out, but it's too hard to come in here and clean in the cold weather, because we have to clean this place up to make sure it's presentable to the public. It gets very dirty and dusty. I cleaned it last week. I spent 3 hours in here cleaning all the windows and trying to get all the dust and crap off the floor that was here.
Thank you so much for doing all of that for us. I imagine with the baseball fields and dust and dirt.
Well, it's just not totally proof of not getting any dirt in here. It's a big building. It's open like a barn. So a lot of dust flies around in here when the wind's blowing outside.
But people are still able to make an appointment to come to see the Historical Society during this time, right?
They can. They can call us at 732-5801, and that's in the area code 717. And of course, we're there on Tuesday and Thursday at the Historical Society of East Pennsboro down at 410 Cherry Street. And you can get to us by using your GPS. That's usually what everybody does today. And you can find us and give us a call and make sure we're open. Sometimes, during these times of COVID, at this particular time in our life, unfortunately, we may not be there. But give us a call, and we'll try to let you know if we're in or not that particular day.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Same thing for coming out here. Most of the time you can give us a call, make an appointment, we'll come out and unlock the door and take you a walk around. So Christy and I are going to change places, and we're going to take you for a tour around the Nail Mill Museum. I'm going to go right You go right up, go this way, either way. So,
All right.
as you can, I don't know if you noticed right away, you can probably take a little shot here to your left, my right. This is an actual replica of the nail mill as it was during that era.
Yeah,
It
and
started.
That's okay. It gives it a natural effect. This is going to be a tough picture to get today
Yeah,
because of the sun shining off the glass.
Originally, only part of the building was here, and then they expanded
right.
on it and made it the nail factory.
If I
So
come,
we'll be able to look at the posters too, and be able to see some of the structure view. Dave Black from West Fairview built this to scale of the actual nail mill factory the way it was along the creek. And just so you can see here, look, I know the sun's bright on there, but there was a dam at the north end of the nail mill, and the water would sluice way through underneath the nail factory itself, and they would drive the nail machines that were used to make the nails. And then the water residue would come out this way and then down the creek. So
try and get a few close-ups with the camera so that people can see. There's some figurines of people in this. That's just absolutely phenomenal how well made that is.
Dave Black did a wonderful job. I mean, this is something he gave to the community, and it took him a whole year to make. So he did spend a lot of time in research, just like Tom Crognow did to build our building here. So coming around here, we're going to take a look at a few of our odds and ends that we found during the early days of research down along the creek. They actually found a grist millstone down along the creek, and originally they're suspecting that at the actual location of where the nail mill stood before that time, there was an actual grist mill along the creek back there, because there were several millstones found in the mud when they were doing their digging around and looking around. These are actual pieces of slag that were used to make the nails out of when they were cooking in the mill itself.
And what is this used
We don't know
for?
what these implements are, but they were some of the items that they found down along the creek when they were doing a lot of digging around trying to find items to bring up to the museum.
Excellent.
So the tour goes from here to my left and around the building. So I'm going to point out a few things. This is the postcard showing the creek and the nail mill factory up along the creek. So looking at the top photo, West Fairview is here along the river. The creek is up around here winding around, and the nail factory was on the other side of this huge bank along the creek. This is the railroad bridge, and this is the actual highway bridge going across the creek as you're going northbound and southbound along 11 and 15.
So we have a map and then a real picture down here also.
Absolutely. So in short, I'm going to be doing some reading too so that you can see where I'm coming from. In 1831, along the bank of the river, this was the site of the actual first rolling mill where they actually made steel mill products. And the nail works was at the time an industry that was providing a lot of work for the men in West Fairview. And actually a lot of folks came from south of West Fairview in Wormleysburg, and they came across the river on a riverboat to go to work there. That was a huge industry at the time. For the men, of course, I did say that. But here are some photographs that were taken from postcards, the top one and the bottom one. And that's the actual look. And you can see that this is actually what this actual little replica behind me looks like. So he was very accurate in his design, as you can see there. So Gabriel Heister and a partner by the name of Norman Callender actually had the first nail mill business along the creek, and that was in the 1830 to 1840 era. During that time, their first structure burned down, and They had to rebuild it again, and there were several different times during the period of time that the building was in operation that it burned down and had to be rebuilt. Just, building, using a hot furnace down there and everything, and it was just an unsafe area to work because of safety conditions at the time. The Heister Mill in 1844 became the property of Jared Pratt, and it merged with some other businesses where the steel mill and the nail factory became one unit. The Pratts had about 125 men working there, and they made 29,000 kegs of nails, the value being $117,500 and some a year. So that was huge money in the 1800s for a business to be operating with. Another thing I'd like to point out, as we look at this top photograph, you can see that there's a bank in the background there. Up over the hill there is where 410 Cherry Street is, and we're just above the nail, where the old nail mill stood. There's a path that goes down along the back here from the top of the hill, and you can actually take a walk down there during the cold season, where you're not going to have to worry about snakes and growth of brush and so forth, and actually get down along the creek and take a walk if you want to and see where that was located. Moving right along here, we're going to take a picture. Take a look at a photograph of the only photograph we have of inside the nail factory. You can see the machines that are lined up from one end of the building to the other. They had belts that would run down from those nail machines underneath the building, where water would drive those belts and make the nail machines work so that they could make nails. This is an actual board that showed the types of nails that they made during different times of need as they were making these nails from the steel. They would take this nail, what they call a sample card, out to businesses, carpenters and so forth, to show them what kind of nails that they made and how much they would cost per pound of nail. And they would make them and put them in large kegs so that they could carry them around to the different areas. They would actually, by rail, bring the iron slag items into the nail mill, and they would actually take them back out by rail because they were so heavy. The actual power to pull the car on the rail was by horse. They didn't have any kind of an engine pulling those cars in and out along the creek there. But they did have a track in and a track out of there to get that out around towards West Fairview so that they could transport those things. Here is a photograph of some of the men and boys that worked at the nail factory. The reason those boys were down there is because they had to do the cleanup work, and they also fed the steel bars into the nail machines. The men actually maintained the machines and ran the machines. It was a huge operation. You can just imagine going down there early in the morning and working there till dark every day. The boys being there working with their fathers and so forth, helping to bring the bacon home to the family every week. You can see here at this bottom photograph a picture of the nail mill dam that went across the creek. The water would run in from the back part of the dam into the nail mill and run the machines, and then come out in the middle, as we showed a little earlier on the model. They were constantly working on the dam. They had men out there working on the dam, keeping it so high enough so that they could hold the water back. You can see here there's a lot of ice and stuff. So they had a lot to deal with down along the creek. The weather conditions meant a lot to the men down there, because during the floods and so forth, they would be dealing with maybe not being able to be open until they got the water down to a level from the flood stage area. The one thing I mentioned earlier that I'd like to bring up again was when I mentioned about Tom Crognally, Tom Crognally not only helped design and build this building. This is a picture of Tom down here. It's a little difficult to see, and Tom's still living. He's
Can you
up in
point
his
Tom
80s now.
out? Could you point Tom out in the picture one
Sure,
more time for
he's
us?
right here
Oh, thank you.
in the shorts.
All right.
Tom was given an opportunity to go up to Massachusetts to the Tremont Nail Company before I
Oh, you know what? I moved and we're okay now.
Okay. Tom went up to the Tremont Nail Factory in Massachusetts after he was offered an opportunity to get a nail machine free, but he had to go up and get it, so he got a what you would call a car carrier that would be able to carry this big heavy structure item back from Massachusetts. And we're going to take a look at the nail machine. It's a huge monster of a thing.
While you're talking, I'm going to kind of close up here a little
Sure,
bit.
let me pull this off. And you can see that it's a big
Well, that made it look authentic, like they'd be cleaning the nail machine.
Well, the reason I had that on there is I'll show you in a minute. In order to make this thing run, they had a belt that would be on this machine, and it would run down into the underneath part of the actual flooring in the nail factory. This part here would be a kind of a clutch thing that the belt would be on, and when they wanted it to go to drive the actual machine, they would slide the belt over onto the drive, which is this part. Now, I'm going to give this thing a spin in a minute by hand to show you how it works. But how it would actually operate is the young boys, I'm going to bring this up and show you this steel plate. The boys would take this, put this in here, and push it down on there. This part would clamp down and smash those nails out of this bar, and he would be putting pressure on it as it would go. You can see back here, there's a little bit of a drive thing here that would smack that nail bar down and press a nail out. And you can see this is in there in a certain position. Now I'm going to pull this. It's very stiff and it's difficult to pull, but as I'm pulling this would be like I'm going to have to come in and oil this thing, but this would be spinning, and you can see this drive thing would be going up and down. It's a little hard to see because there's such a tight piece of mechanics there.
I can see it going now.
Yes, loosening up.
Look, you got it loosened up.
So that is the gist of how this would actually operate. Poops me out.
I was going to say, that was incredible.
Yeah, it's a little stiff, it's cold,
I'm just going
and
to...
when it's a little hotter during the summer days, it works a lot better, a lot easier. As we're going around the room here, I'd like to point some things out to you. One of the items is this huge wooden nail, which was used to bring in the new year back in 2015 when the 200th anniversary of West Fairview was celebrated. At the beginning of the year in 2015, they had a nail drop at a party that year to depict what was the most popular thing that helped put West Fairview on the map, and that was the nail factory.
So forget a Hershey Kiss and forget a Dillsburg Pickle,
Yeah,
right?
they actually did this. It was very popular at the time. It was in the newspaper advertised to be one of the drops in New Year's celebrations at that time. So this is their big drop item. Now, in order for them to raise money to build the nail museum out here, we had some charter memberships offered, and there were hundreds of names of people who donated different items, different types of monetary donations to us to build it. And these were the largest amounts of money, donors, and so forth the less and less, all the way down to any monetary donation. And these were specific amounts that they had to donate to be a silver, gold, or a platinum donor. So there were also not just donors, they, to say who they were that donated, they also had some in memory of different folks that were purchased to help fund the building and maintenance of the building here at Adams Ricci Park.
Everybody likes to see their name in print, right?
I'll be right back. I was drying out there, I had to get a drink. So we were very fortunate. We got a lot of money and it cost us very little out of pocket to build the museum, and we've been, for the community's sake, very blessed. This here is a picture of a sign showing that the nail works was up for sale. It was sold and purchased several times over the years in the 1800s by different people. The last family that owned it were the McCormicks, and originally in the early 1800s it was called the Fairview Nail Works, but after the McCormicks bought it, they called it the Harrisburg Nail Works. So this is one of the times it was for sale, so we decided to bring that up here on one of our posters and show you the original picture of the original for sale sign. Here's another view of the dam. You can see the dam a little more active with during the high water season, and the water flowing down over the one side of the dam there, and the water would flow through, of course, this one sluice way and then come out the other end. In the middle 1800s, around the Civil War era time, in Germany, there was a new invention made called a wire nail. Now, when they invented this wire nail to make it a more efficient and speedier way to make a nail, that caused some problems for the West Fairview or the Harrisburg Nail Works, because at the time they were making these types of different square nails, the old square box type nail, and they were, of course, stamping them out, and it wasn't a very efficient way to do it compared to the new industrial age wire nail that was made in Europe. And they were bringing this new way to do this over to our country from Europe, and they were building new, more modern nail works, and eventually, because of that, it ran this particular type of operation and nail works out of business. The place was very old and antiquated, and it was in such a condition in the late 1800s that they really couldn't revamp the place to do a more modern way to make a nail. So in the long run, the Fairview nail mill went down the drain. It just quit running. The operation wasn't able to go any further in its particular conditions. So that's just what happened. Over here you can see in the late 1800s, around 1890 or so, the dilapidation of the building and its condition there. You can see one of the stacks falling over as time wore it out. It would be eventually torn down, and that would be the end of the nail factory in the late 1800s. Now down along the creek, you can still see these arches where the water would run through during the early days of the nail mill. I remember several years ago when I was kayaking down the creek, you could still see this particular arch, but all the other ones were completely filled in with dirt and mud from the 1800s all the way up and through the late 1900s. there were many floods and washouts of the creek area down there, so they just filled up with mud, and you can't see much of any of them anymore. But they are there underneath the dirt, and like I say, the only ones you can really see is the one very large one along the creek. Here you can see some folks standing on the arch. You can get an idea of how big that arch is. And that was back in the early 1900s, that photograph was taken. Now you can get down and stand on that arch, but it's in not very good condition. Eventually it's probably going to collapse.
With my luck, if I stood on it, it would collapse while I was standing on it.
Well, down there at this particular time in our era, kids get down there camping. They get down there and have their fun chipping away at the arch, you know, trying to make it collapse. It's not per se a safe thing to do, standing on it. But this is a short tour. Like I say, it's a personal hands-on tour. We try to get some folks to come down here in large numbers if possible, so that we can open the door and make it easier for people to come down. We've had some Boy Scout troops come down, and some other groups of people, Golden Agers and so forth, come down and go through the place. But
Well, and I think that one of my game plans is once I'm able to start doing in-person programming at the library again, whenever that could be, probably next year, end of next year, middle of next
I
year.
hope so.
I'm going to schedule a tour for a group of people
Sure.
to come down, and, you know, we need to get this information out there. This is important, and it's an important piece of our history.
Well, one thing you mentioned earlier, you know, you said there aren't a lot of signage out there around the park area where they show what's in the park. It doesn't really say specifically that this building is here in the middle of the park for the public to see. So they only know it's here because they're out here walking around or participating in a picnic down here and so forth.
Right.
So what happened was when they made them signs, this place wasn't here. And they didn't add this to the current signage. So
Well-
like you said, we have to talk to the township.
Yes, and here's what I will tell our patrons if you decide to come. If you're walking around Adams Ricci Park and you never knew what this building was, it's at the northeast end of the park beside Pavilion A and Field A.
And right behind.
And right behind the playground. I'm
That's
going to come
right.
over here and look out this door so that everyone can see, and that'll give them a better idea.
That's right. So I really appreciate you coming down, taking the time to show the community what we have to offer from the Historical Society. This is just another edition of things that we're here to provide for the community.
And
I
we appreciate you doing this for us, and we're hoping that we can continue to do more videos and get more artifacts out at the Historical Society building throughout the rest of the winter, and you and I can make some plans for that, and we appreciate you giving your time and giving your time for the history of East Pennsboro.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Christy, and we wish you all have a good day. And I know it's cold out. There are people walking around the park, and we just hope that we can get together sometime and have a personal one-on-one or one-on-many big people group to do a tour.
Our time will come. We just have to be patient and keep wearing our masks, everyone.
Correctly. Here we go.
Yes, the correct way. Thank you very much, Jim.
So long.